Saturn Transits. As an astrologer, I know that when Saturn transits an important part of your horoscope, you are going to feel it. You're going to feel it in a way that may make you feel uncomfortable and will probably, most definitely, bring some life changes, some new direction. They are lonely, uncomfortable, hardworking, difficult times. But they can also be the very turning point that you think, yes, I can do it. So first of all, you need to know what Saturn is in you, how to recognize your own Saturn. So an easy way is to realize that Saturn is the teacher in you. And you can find the teacher in you by noticing how you respond to all the irritating, difficult, annoying people in your personal life. The story that you probably tell yourself goes something like this: they are so annoying, they should be doing this, this, this and this. And they probably are annoying, and you're probably right. The point is that is your Saturn, one that makes the judgment, two that has the wisdom of something better, but you're not fully utilizing it if you're still moaning about them, because you're not teaching them. And then you might say, oh, I've done everything I can to show them. Well, then you need to teach them better. And that is your Saturn. To really make that commitment to being able to show somebody somehow your wisdom. That is Saturn on an everyday level. So when you know your Saturn, you know that when Saturn is going to cross one of your natal planets, it's going to bring a teaching to you and also urge you to bring a teaching to others. I'm just thinking how much it urges us to bring a teaching to others, actually. I think that is the exaltation of it. First of all, you really want to learn the lesson that it is teaching you. When Saturn crosses your Sun, I would bet that you feel tired and drained and exhausted. You need to hone your energy. You need to stay in your place somehow, whatever that means to you. Whether that means to stay at home or whether that means to just keep your head down and work. So you need to focus on what matters and what matters to your life. No one is judging you except you, your Saturn. No one is judging you as to what really matters. So you need to be quite deep about what is important in your life. And so 6 months before Saturn is going to conjunct my Sun, I would be honing the energies in my life, making sure I'm going in one straight direction and not flying all over the place and doing this and doing that and trying to get this done and trying to get that done. And also you need to look to the house that your Sun is in when Saturn is transiting your Sun, in order to bring more of that house into your focus to improve that area of your life. So for instance, if it's the 5th house and you have children, perhaps you need a better routine with them. Or if you're an artist, perhaps you need a better routine with your art. Or if it's in the 9th house, maybe you need to have better planning for your holidays. Maybe you need to actually start learning a great new subject that's going to open your mind to bigger things. Maybe you need to make that commitment. When Saturn conjuncts your moon, this is a lonely time. This is a time where you can feel isolated and abandoned, and I'd say it is quite emotionally painful because we do feel rather raw. But it affects the women in our lives, our mothers, our sisters, maybe very close girlfriends, maybe our children, as well as, again, our body on an emotional level. So when Saturn crosses your moon, again 6 months in advance, start preparing. Start contacting the women in your life. Start writing them letters if they live abroad, or ringing them regularly. Start making a home that is more comfortable for yourself, because another thing with Saturn moon is that you feel kind of uncomfortable. Start making comfort for yourself. Start knowing what comfort is, basic comfort. So start looking after the basics in your life, your sleeping and your eating particularly. When Saturn conjuncts your Mercury, you might wake up with a kind of feeling of something's not right, or you nag yourself that it doesn't seem right, or something's not as it should be. You can't quite put your finger on it, and the reason you can't quite put your finger on it is because it's not actually true. It's the way Saturn speaks, which is why Saturn transits are so difficult to understand, because Saturn is quite a hard taskmaster, and it speaks in harsh tones to our soul. So it's really saying you need to look at the little things, you need to get the little things in order. And so it's trying to make you interested in the minutiae of your life. So don't worry unnecessarily when Saturn is conjuncting your Mercury. Start doing something instead, like editing a book, or your accounts, or the paperwork. When Saturn transits your Venus, again 6 months in advance, this is also a very emotionally difficult time. You probably will lose some friends. Probably. Because you've probably collected lots of friends, which is what happens, that are not really friends, and they've become more of a need, and you don't need them. And so Saturn tends to go, stop messing around and having so much pleasure. Only have what you truly need in your life. And it's the same with money as well. This is the time to start saving and pay off your debts. 6 months before, a year before if you can. You will find by the time Saturn conjuncts your Venus, you'd have sorted your money problems. You might not be flush, but you won't be in debt. So Saturn-Venus is very good for your money and your friendships, but your love. Now, lots of love relationships end under Saturn-Venus, but lots of relationships are strengthened under Saturn-Venus. So, a year in advance, 6 months in advance, strengthen your relationship. Talk about things, do whatever it takes to make your relationship stronger, more stable. Be one of the many who have a stronger, longer lasting relationship under Saturn. Saturn, when it conjuncts your Mars, is the time to work harder. You'll be going, at the time when Saturn does transit your Mars, you'll be going, oh, I'm working so hard, I couldn't work any harder. But you can, that's the point. You can. Some say Saturn-Mars is a time to give up. Only give up if you don't want it. If you want it, work harder. You really can. Dig deep. Saturn-Mars is about digging deep and working harder. Saturn-Jupiter is an easy transit, actually. It just tames your excesses, and it's quite a nice transit. You have a lot of wisdom under this one. You tend to flow a lot easier. Saturn-Jupiter is not the best transit of all the transits there are. But it's probably the most like your mother telling you something that just makes a lot of sense, and then you go and do it. There's not a real fight about it. Now, Saturn over the angles. Actually, Saturn with any of the personal planets can bring, doesn't often, but death does happen with the sun, say. Not your death, somebody else's. Well, actually, it could be your death with the sun. That would probably be the trigger for you, but it's not usual. Oh, maybe I shouldn't even say that. Shall I? Shall I? Certainly, when Saturn is going to conjunct my sun again, I will be very aware of my health and whether it is going to bring my death. But that doesn't mean it will, obviously, because I've lived through a few Saturn suns, and lots of people do. So Saturn ascendant, Saturn IC, Saturn descendant can bring someone else's death, and this is the reason why many people are forced into a greater responsibility. Saturn ascendant is particularly about owning all the responsibility that you need to take on. Saturn IC obviously do the maintenance in your house, but it is particularly as well about you taking on your power and your responsibility, practicing it in the home, practicing it in private homes, so it becomes very transformative from a deep inner sense of yourself. Saturn descendant could be a loved one dies, a parent or something, but that isn't always the case. But it does sometimes happen, and I'm telling you, it does. And it's surprising. The angles are quite powerful for Pluto and for Uranus as well. The angles are very, very strong. They change our lives so much. Saturn MC is probably going to be about you receiving recognition for all the work that you've done, and you having a more solid sense of status. And that sense of status might be really, really rubbish, like you could be homeless because you've done nothing, and you kind of recognize, oh my goodness, this is what I've done by doing nothing. Or it could be far more positive than that, and it probably will be. But there's a whole spectrum of these things with Saturn. And so in order to really use this part of you, you have to know what it is like. It's not so much about teaching others that is Saturn. It's the fact that teaching isn't about telling somebody something. It can be about having a wise sense of patience. It can be a breadth of understanding that you can bear with them. Teaching isn't necessarily teaching, but the commitment to helping them become a better person is your path, and your path is the route of how Saturn is going to transit in your life, what changes you make, what you will keep, and what you will let go of.